to everybody. My vlog topic today is actually on the reinterpretation of the golden rule. So it's kind of like a life hack type of topic, and it's really about, especially I think in this challenging time in history that we're all experiencing, it's really hard, I think, to think on another level sometimes, because it's like, how do we just get through the day? How do we get through a really difficult time? How do we deal with chaos and still be in a place where we don't enter into tunnel vision, and whether that tunnel is just to ourselves individually or if that tunnel is just like the extensions of ourselves, which are our children. But how do we actually see outside of that? How do we see that to our loved ones, our family, our friends, our business community, our community, local community, our global community? How do we still, in the midst of great challenge, be able to see outside of ourselves and care enough to try, And so that's kind of what this is about today, is a little bit of a reinterpretation of the golden rule. And Hannah on my team and friend of mine, as we were chatting about this topic, brought up an awesome MLK quote, I think, to kind of kick this off, which is, the ultimate measure of a man or human is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. And that, unfortunately, I think when we're in the midst of chaos and we're in the midst of controversy and challenge, it tends to be a big truth teller about us. Who are we really when it's hard? Not who are we when it's easy or when it's something we're comfortable with or familiar with. So I'll kind of start this off. So my interpretation, and I'm going to, right after this, go into providing some context as I normally do, but my reinterpretation of the golden rule is not necessarily to do unto others as you would do unto you, but instead it's do unto others as you would like you to do unto them. Meaning, what we should be doing for each other is not what we want them to do for us, but what other people actually need, right? What does that person need? And I'll give you a little context, and I'll use the example of something that will be familiar to a lot of people, which is in a relationship with your partner or significant other. Let's say one person gets sick. One person's sick with anything from a super minor illness to something really significant. And when the person gets sick, the golden rule would tell you, well, here's how I would like to be treated if I were the one that was sick. So that's what I'm going to do to the other person. But instead, what I would challenge you to do is to say, what does that person need? This person's the one that's sick. I want them to feel loved. I want them to feel cared for. I want them to feel supported. So what do they need? What do they need to feel like they're not being ignored? What do they feel like? What do they need in order to feel like they have someone around them that wants to help them find their way to health? And so I think that that's a great example, probably something a lot of us that are in any kind of relationship can relate to, because it is obviously not uncommon for someone to get sick in that relationship. And it's not uncommon for the other person to become a caretaker in some way, shape, or form. So I think that that's a great example to maybe give you a little bit of context. And as you think this through, and maybe as we're talking here today together, is for you to also think about circumstances in your own life, that will, that you can reflect on this and think about, and like, how can I do unto others as they need? How can I do unto others as in a way that would make them feel loved and how they would be cared for? So, this, I think, topic affects so many things happening now in society. And we could really run the gambit here. We're talking from like human rights issues to everything going on with the pandemic, and most especially things happening in terms of mental health. I would venture to say that there is probably not a single person on the planet right now that is not being affected in some way, shape, or form, that is causing a shift, or even in some cases, like to a debilitating level, impacts on their mental health. I know for me, for sure, this past year in particular, but even dating prior to that, I myself have struggled with a lot of different mental health things. I've shared that very openly here on my channel. And just so that people can go, hey, like, this can affect anybody, even for those of us who, have more of a history of being like very emotionally strong people. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're somehow immune to what's going on around you in a way that your mental health is in a perfect place all the time. And that's certainly not been the case. And I think in times like this, when everyone on a global scale is affected from mental health, it becomes an even greater challenge to not fall prey to who we can be, in our times of weakness, in our times of insecurity. It's very easy to fall prey to that and forget something as simple as a golden rule, and to not think and take the time to be caring enough about someone else and say, not what is it that I would want them, what would I do in the situation, but instead, what did they need in this situation? So it's something I would just say, really challenge you in, even in the midst of chaos, and realize that, yes, it is human nature. I think that when we're in the midst of chaos, let's say you're in the middle of an argument, you're in the middle of a fight, and someone says some pretty intentionally hurtful things, right? And then later on, after the air is cleared and there's been some time and you come back to it and someone it's like a half apology. It's not like a real apology. It's a half apology that was I'm sorry I made you feel this way. It was just that you said and you did this, so then I reacted to it, which is not really an apology, right? I think we can all agree to that. A real apology would be to say, I take full accountability for my behavior. I take full accountability for how I acted. It has nothing to do with what the other person said or did. It has everything to do with how I chose to respond in that moment. And there could be a lot of reasons for that. Don't get me wrong, but it's not a genuine apology. And so I know for me, I've struggled a lot with, being in a variety of really, really, really difficult situations over the course of literally the last 2 years, and still caring enough to try my best to step back and empathize with where someone else is coming from, even if they've said or they've done something or neglected to do something that really, really hurt me. And it definitely triggers things, right? And it starts to rehash old wounds and reopen old wounds, and and it tempts you and tempts me to be in that situation and to want to react in a way and say, hey, my reaction, no matter how bad it is justified because I'm reacting to this other person instead of saying, no. I got to say and behave in a way that I feel after the air is cleared, that I'm still proud of. Am I proud of my behavior? Am I proud of how I handled this? And that's an ongoing challenge. It's something I literally work at every day. And sometimes I succeed and other times I fail miserably. And so again, I think it's just something I bring forward that will hopefully help you guys. It'll help to actually build community around you in this really hard time. It'll help to build relationships and not break them. It'll help to, reinforce all the goals you have for yourself in becoming a better version of yourself every day. Really, that's ultimately the purpose of a lot of these topics that I have on here. And I hope it does that for you, especially when I'm vulnerable, like I often am, to share my own weaknesses. And I'm here to share my own challenges and circumstances. So, I want to kind of bring this all now back full circle for you and just say, the reinterpretation of the golden rule is something that, I hope in the midst of so much noise out there, in the midst of so much polarization, and just real life struggles that are happening right now, that we can find our way back as a unified people by caring, by being thoughtful, by thinking outside of ourselves, by thinking about outside of our own needs, by working on ourselves as individuals and saying, what do I need to do to be the best version of myself that isn't dependent upon other people? And just continue to work at that. No, we're all working on it. We're all struggling in our own ways. We're all dealing with mental health issues in some way, shape, or form. We're all dealing with really, really hard things right now. And to know that we're in this together. We're in this together, and I hope that we can support each other through it. Well, thank you all for your time so much today. Sending out so much love to all of you, so much care, wishing nothing but the best 2022 possible, and to find those silver linings and to work towards them.
Thanks for watching. Below is other videos that you might find interesting. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and also ring that bell for notifications.